I was in the test kitchen at the Gilded Spoon, perfecting a saffron reduction. When my phone buzzed on the cold steel counter, I almost ignored it. But the sender address, it made my blood run cold. David at Wentworth Press. Com. An email address I had not seen in 21 years. The subject line was a single, manipulative word. Family. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened it. Bonnie, your mother and I saw the news about Ethan. We are incredibly proud. We will be attending the Innovator of the Year award on Friday night to celebrate our grandson publicly. It is time to heal. Our grandson. 21 years of silence. And that's how they return. Not with an apology, but with a social announcement. Have you ever gotten a message from the past that just freezes you in place? Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's here. Re-ai jem tweeching. I read the email twice. The nerve. The absolute. Breathtaking entitlement. Our grandson. 21 years ago. I would have cried. I would have begged. I would have broken into 1,000 pieces right there on the kitchen floor. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't feel that hot. Screaming anger. It was just... clinical. I didn't reply. I didn't draft a single angry word. I just took a screenshot of the email. I forwarded it to my husband. Michael. My text to him was only 2 words. Handle it. Then, I turned back to my stove. I picked up my whisk. The saffron reduction was waiting, and I would not let it burn for ghosts. My focus was absolute. This wasn't a family drama. This was a pest control problem. My hands didn't shake as I whisked the sauce. But my mind went back. It always goes back to the library. Boston. 21 years ago. The smell of old leather and my father's cigar smoke. Trapped in the mahogany-paneled walls of our Beacon Hill home. I was 17, and my hand was trembling as I held out the positive pregnancy test. My father, David Wentworth, didn't yell. Yelling was for people with no leverage. He just looked at the test, then at me, with the same cold disappointment he'd use for a bad print run. A transactional disappointment. He said. His voice was perfectly level. That's what you are. I didn't understand. What? The merger. He said, as if explaining a balance sheet to an intern. The marriage to the Hadley boy. That was a dynasty merger. Bonnie. Decades of planning. And you? With this. Common problem. You have ruined the deal. A deal. I was a deal. I looked at my mother. Susan. She was sitting by the fireplace. Under the massive portrait of her great-grandfather. She was flipping through a manuscript. The sound of the thick paper turning shh, shh, was the only other sound in the room. She didn't look up. Not once. She just kept editing, complicit in her silence. And that's when I realized it. The pain wasn't just about being pregnant. It was about this. I had been the good child my entire life. I got the perfect grades. I went to the right parties. I knew the right names. I was the perfect, polished asset for the Wentworth Press dynasty. I had played the part so well. I actually thought they loved me. But the moment my real self, a scared, pregnant teenager, contradicted that perfect image, the love vanished. It wasn't love. It was an investment. And I had just defaulted. My father walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a small stack of cash from a bank envelope. $450. He said. He placed it on the desk between us. That's what you have. You will leave this house tonight. You will not use the Wentworth name. You will not contact us. You are no longer our concern. I stared at the money. He was closing a bad deal. I was a transactional disappointment. That night, I didn't sleep in my 4-poster bed. I slept on a wooden bench in the Boston Public Garden, clutching my stomach, the smell of swanboat water and exhaust filling my lungs. I was trembling, and for the first time, I was completely, utterly alone. I was no longer a Wentworth. I was nothing. My phone rang an hour later. It was Michael. Okay, he said. His voice was calm. The one he uses for legal battles. I've blocked their email address and their phone numbers from your devices. They can't reach you directly again. Thank you, I said, looking out the window. That's it. Then, not quite. He sighed. I blocked them. Bonnie. But not before they made their move. They've already called the event organizers for the Innovators Award. My grip tightened on the phone. What did they do? What do you think? They introduced themselves as Dr. and Mrs. Lurd Wentworth, Ethan's proud grandparents. They said there must have been a terrible oversight that they weren't on the list. And they've requested a table. Front row. Center. I actually laughed. A cold, short sound. Of course they did. The performance has to have a good view. Exactly. But it gets worse. Check your mother's Instagram. I hung up and opened the app. My mother's profile was all high society fundraisers and literary galas. And there, at the top of her feed, was a photo I hadn't seen in 2 decades. It was me, age 10, holding a riding trophy, my hair in a tight braid, my smile forced. The caption read, "Always knew the Wentworth family had excellent genes. So proud of our family's heritage and all it produces. Number Wentworth Press, number legacy, number proud." The comments were pouring in from their Beacon Hill friends. Susan, how wonderful. You must be bursting with pride. Congratulations. He gets that brilliance from his grandparents. Such a beautiful legacy. They were building a narrative. Erasing 21 years of abandonment with a single, blurry photo and a hashtag. They weren't just showing up. They were launching a PR campaign. Michael called back, as if he knew I'd seen it. Bonnie, he said, his voice firm. You need to listen to me. They don't want Ethan. Not really. They want what Ethan represents. I was quiet, listening. I did some digging, he continued. Wentworth Press is in trouble. Deep trouble. They missed the digital wave. Their stock is in the basement. They need a shiny win to attract new investors. They need a good story. A genius. Millionaire grandson is the perfect story. So I'm not a daughter, I said. And he's not a grandson. We're just assets. He's a lifeline. Michael corrected. This isn't about family. This is a classic narcissistic Hoover. They've been starving for a supply of status. And Ethan just became the biggest source on the planet. They're trying to suck you, and him, back into their orbit to save themselves. He paused. Don't take the bait. Bon, this is a business move. We need to treat it like one. A business move. Michael said. He was right. And it was a move that Beatrice would have seen, coming from a mile away. I thought of her. I couldn't not think of her. Beatrice. The woman who actually saved me. I was 3 days into my new life on that park bench in the Boston Public Garden. It was cold. Damp. And I was trying to sleep when I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. I flinched, expecting a cop or worse, but it was a woman in her 70s, with sharp, kind eyes and a cashmere coat. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just stated a fact. You are not. Come. Beatrice was a retired constitutional law professor. A widow? A woman who had lost her own daughter. Her only child. In a car crash years earlier. She saw me. A pregnant 17-year-old with $450 to my name. And she didn't see a transactional disappointment. She saw a project. No. She saw family. She gave me the guest room in her brownstone. She was there when Ethan was born. She held my hand. And she was the first person, after me, to hold him. She became the only grandmother Ethan ever knew. She was the one who taught me. She'd sit with me at her huge oak desk, surrounded by law books, and say, Bonnie, do not let them define your worth. Legacy isn't what you inherit in blood, it's what you build by choice. When I had the idea for the Gilded Spoon, she didn't just encourage me, she gave me the seed capital. Build your own empire, she'd said. It's the only one they can't take from you. Beatrice died 2 years ago, and she had been planning for this day ever since. I knew this because I was sitting in Michael's office the next afternoon. He slid a thick, leather-bound document across his desk. Beatrice's will. I've been over it 3 times. He pointed to a clause. She left you and Ethan everything. $25 million. But it's locked in an ironclad trust. It's protected. Then he slid a second. Much older document over. It was thin, yellowed at the edges. And this, he said, is the document your parents' lawyer had you sign 21 years ago? The one you barely remember? He pointed to a line. It's a full relinquishment of parental rights. Both ways. Legally. Bonnie, they are not your family. They have no more claim on you or Ethan than a stranger on the street. He smiled. Beatrice made sure I kept the original. She knew. I let out a breath I'd been holding for 2 decades. So, they have nothing. Their Instagram posts. The calls. It's all just noise. It's noise. Michael agreed. But it's calculated noise. It's the first part of a... His phone buzzed. He looked at it. And his face went hard. Damn it. What? What is it? That was an alert from the court docket. He said, his fingers flying across his keyboard. Ethan's been sued. My stomach dropped. Sued for what intellectual property theft? That's insane. His AI app is his. He built it from scratch. I know, Michael said, reading fast. But the plaintiff, Bonnie, the plaintiff is Ryan. Ryan, my high school boyfriend. The boy who had promised me forever, and then blocked my number the day I told him I was pregnant. The biological father who had vanished. He's claiming, Michael Reed, his voice tight with anger, that Ethan's accessibility AI is based on a concept they discussed in high school chemistry class. He's demanding 50% of the company. He's a failed venture capitalist. I whispered, horrified. He's bankrupt. He has no case. He doesn't need a case, Michael said, his eyes narrowing. He just needs funding. Someone is paying his legal fees. Someone is bankrolling this entire frivolous lawsuit. He kept typing, pulling up incorporation records, law firm retainers. And then he found it. He just pointed at the screen. A wire transfer. From a holding company. A holding company I knew. It was the one Wentworth Press used for its acquisitions. I felt sick. They're paying him? I said. Michael nodded. His face grim. It's a pincer move. A coordinated attack. He stood up and started pacing. Don't you see? It's brilliant. In a sociopathic way. Ryan, the biological father, attacks Ethan's company with a lawsuit they know is fake. But it's expensive and public. It ties Ethan up in legal hell. He pointed at me. Meanwhile, David and Susan, the loving grandparents, attack you socially? They play the victim on Instagram. They show up at the gala. They pressure you to reconcile and make this all go away. They're using Ryan to create a problem that only they can solve. In exchange for what they want. Access, I said. They want access to Ethan. They want his name. They want his money. They want to be saved, Michael said. And they are willing to burn their own son and their own daughter to do it. The Innovator of the Year Gala was exactly the kind of event my parents were born for. It was held in a massive, historic ballroom in Boston. Dripping with crystal and old money, cameras flashed. Journalists lined the walls. And right at table 1, front and center, sat David and Susan Wentworth. Alongside Ryan, my mother. Susan. I was wearing a diamond necklace, That probably cost more than my first condo. My father, David, looked every bit the publishing magnate, nodding regally to the other guests. They were performing. They were in their element. The CEO of the Tech Council took the stage. And now, the 2025 Innovator of the Year Award, our highest honor, goes to the person whose work in accessibility AI has fundamentally changed how we interact with the world. Mr. Ethan. He didn't get to finish the name. David and Susan were already on their feet, clapping loudest of all, beaming as if they had written the code themselves. Ethan walked onto the stage, looking impossibly young in his tailored suit. He accepted the heavy crystal award. "Thank you," he said, his voice clear and steady, filling the silent room. "Thank you to the committee." David and Susan were practically glowing. I saw my mother dab her eye for the cameras. "I'm here tonight because of a legacy," Ethan said. My parents nodded, smiling, ready to accept their due. "But it's not the legacy you might think." The smiles on table 1 froze. 21 years ago, Ethan continued, a 17-year-old girl was kicked out of her home in Beacon Hill. She was pregnant, and she had $450 to her name. She spent 3 nights sleeping on a bench in the Boston Public Garden, terrified and alone. The room was dead, silent. The cameras that had been on Ethan slowly panned to my parents' table. "That girl was my mother," Ethan said. "And the woman who saved her wasn't family. Her name was Beatrice, a retired law professor who found my mother in that park and gave her a home. She became my grandmother. She taught my mother how to build an empire from nothing. She taught me that your circumstances don't define you." He looked directly at table 1. My father's face was white. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. "The people who threw my mother out 21 years ago?" Ethan said, his voice never wavering. "I were sitting at that table tonight. They came back. Not because they were sorry. They came back because their own legacy, their publishing house, is failing. And they needed a new, shiny asset. They came back because they wanted a piece of this." He held up the award. "And when I refused, they paid my biological father." He pointed right at Ryan to file a fraudulent lawsuit against me, alleging I stole my own work, hoping to bleed me dry until I agreed to reconcile. A collective gasp went through the ballroom. "Don't take my word for it," Ethan said. He clicked a remote. The 20-foot screen behind him lit up. It was the email chain. The wire transfers from Wentworth Press's holding company to Ryan. The entire sociopathic plan, displayed for hundreds of Boston's most influential people to see. Ryan looked like he was going to be sick. David and Susan were frozen in a spotlight of their own making. "They believe in a blood legacy," Ethan said, his voice ringing with conviction. "An empty, hollow thing used to control, to demand, to maintain an image. But my real grandmother, Beatrice, she taught me about the legacy of choice. A legacy that isn't about what's in your blood, but what's in your heart. A legacy of empowering others, of building, not taking. And that," he said, "is why. That's why tonight." Ethan's voice boomed, filled with pride. "I am announcing the formation of the $25 million Beatrice Accessibility Fund to provide scholarships and seed funding for innovators who, like my mother, they were told they were worthless, but are ready to build a legacy of choice." The ballroom didn't just clap. It erupted. It was a standing ovation that thundered against the walls. The applause was deafening. Through the noise, I saw them. Security, already briefed by Michael, was moving quietly toward table 1. They escorted David, Susan, and Ryan out. My parents, for the first time in their lives, looked small. Their power, built on image and illusion, had evaporated under the spotlight of truth. Ryan just looked like what he was, a desperate, failed man. They had to walk past my table to get to the exit. I stood up. My mother stopped, her face a mask of pure hatred. You! She hissed. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just picked up a file folder Michael had prepared. This, I said calmly, holding it out for her, is a temporary restraining order, effective immediately. She flinched as if it were a snake. And this, I added, placing a second document on top, is the packet of evidence we've already sent to the SEC. It details how you and David misused Wentworth Press corporate funds to finance a fraudulent lawsuit. My father's face went from white to purple. I'm sure the shareholders will be fascinated, I said, my voice quiet. I looked my mother in the eyes, the woman who had edited a manuscript while my life ended. Goodbye. Susan. They were gone. The aftermath was fast. The news clip of Ethan's speech and my parents' humiliation went viral. Wentworth Press stock didn't just drop, it collapsed. The board called an emergency meeting, and David and Susan were voted out of their own company in disgrace. Ryan was promptly indicted for perjury and wire fraud. Last week, Ethan and I signed the first check from the Beatrice Fund. A full scholarship for a brilliant young engineer, a single mother from Dorchester. They tried to steal my son's legacy. They tried to weaponize mine. So, we decided to redefine the word. Legacy isn't about blood. It's not about what you're owed. It's about what you build. Family. Family is choice. And we chose ours.